Okay, let's try this again, because I just recorded an entire video just to turn around in my camera to say, not enough memory card space. So, let's start at the beginning. Welcome. Okay, for those of you that don't already know, this is the FX30, and it is the FX3, but with a secret crop sensor. I wanted to make a video talking more so about my personal pros and cons list rather than just like reading a spec sheet. So, let's get into it. Hopefully this one goes better than the last one and my memory card doesn't fill up. Okay, first off I want to talk about the body itself. Now it's the same exact body as the FX3, just like I said before with a crop sensor inside. So I was able to get the small rig camera cage for it, which since it's the same exact body, fits perfectly. I mean, it even says designed for FX3 on it, and you look slightly over to the left and it says Sony FX30. So it does fit everything that's made for the FX3, which makes it super easy to find parts. Now, what I do really like about this camera is how everything is separated and easy to get to. If you look at it, you can see all these different buttons for quick controls that you may need to get to while recording video, and it's nice not to have to go into a menu or some pop-up display, settings, anything to get to, and you can just press a quick button and it changes something. What I also like is how the different plugins and ports and stuff are separated. Like there's one for the HDMI cord, there's one for audio, there's one for charging, there's one for media slots, which I like that there's 2 media slots, and it still fits the CF Express cards, which thank you Sony for making them the same size as SD cards. And then lastly there's the battery slot. So it's pretty nice to not have to have everything open and exposed when you're just using one, because if you have something plugged into say the headphone jack on other cameras like the A6400, you would also need to have the HDMI port exposed, which I'm not really a big fan of, because if I don't have something plugged into it, then particles or something is getting into that port. There's mic plugged in right now and bugging me that there's probably stuff getting in that port, but whatever. It's nice to just have things separated. Now the body itself is a much more durable build than other cameras. It won't break as easily, and it also has a bunch of different corkscrews or corkscrew females where you can screw in an attachment or something. And I kind of defeated the purpose of both of those features when I put the cage on. But I don't trust myself. I feel like I would still manage to break the camera, so I put a cage on. And I also wanted more spots to attach stuff, so I put a cage on. I also ended up getting the version without the XLR handle, just because I didn't really like the actual XLR handle itself. I felt it when I went to the B&H store in New York City, and it just did not feel right to me. It didn't feel good, it didn't feel natural, it didn't feel like something I wanted to shoot with, but that's just personal opinion. I just decided to get a different top handle, and I'll run the same stuff off of something else. The version without the XLR handle was also cheaper. So, more about the body. It has fans built inside of it, which makes it a little heavier than other cameras, but it's still honestly pretty lighter than I thought it was going to be. I was expecting it to be super heavy, but it's not that bad. You'll also notice looking at it that there is no viewfinder, which I personally really like. I never personally really used a viewfinder. I never really was a big fan of holding the camera up to my face and shooting like that. It just never made sense to me when I can just hold it up here or down here or up here and get different angles and just look at the screen. Another cool feature of the body are the recording lights. So when I hit record, you'll see that red line, the little red light pop up there and there and there, and the whole screen is outlined in a red line, which I very much like, because perfect example of what happened to me when recording this video before. I shot the entire video, turned around and looked at my camera and found out I got a minute and a half worth of footage. It was quite a bummer, but with these recording lights I can literally just see when the light goes off and I'm not recording anymore, so that's quite nice. Now the grip on this is actually a bit larger and sticks out farther than other cameras that I've used. On the A6400 is very small, and I had to get a cage that had a extension of the handle, so it was just bigger. But with this one, I don't need a cage that has like an extension on the handle because it feels natural. I can just hold it just fine and still hit the record buttons without any problem. Now let's get to the actual like internal components that I like about the camera. I love that I can shoot raw footage with an external recorder. I didn't have that option before, but now that I can just adjust footage with a click on a computer after I've shot it and realized that I way underexposed it, it's pretty nice. Another feature I liked was that you can shoot in 10-bit color. You can also shoot in 4K 20, not 4K 20, 4K 120, which is pretty nice, which what I was working with before was just 4K 30, so this is a big improvement from going from 30 frames per second to 120 frames per second. It's a huge step up, and when I shot a test experimental footage video, it's just like a little cinematic 2-minute video that I made a week ago. That footage I shot in 4K 60 just as like a test, like do I really need to use 120? And no, I could get the footage down to like 30-35% speed before it really started to get like jumpy. It wasn't even like really jumpy, it was just a little. And then if that's not enough, I can go to 4K 120, and if for some reason that still isn't enough, I can drop it down to 1080 and shoot 240 frames per second, and that's just like, that's a lot of frames. One of my biggest problems with A6400 when I was shooting with it was the wobble. The active stabilization was awful. Every time I shot a video, it felt like it was just like, you know when you warp stabilize something in Premiere Pro and it looks like you've shot it through Jello? It looked like that out of the camera, and it just annoyed me so much. But this one, huge step up. The active stabilization is amazing. There's no warp or wobble, and it looks so much better. I could not stand the wobble on the A6400. It just was ridiculous. And then my one con about the camera, I could only really think of one that wasn't like it has this, but there's this, or it does this, but it has to do this. It was just negative, was the battery life isn't great. Now, that does have to do with the fact that I'm shooting 4K 60 in S-Log3. That's obviously going to bog the camera down a lot more than if I'm shooting 1080 24 in like no picture profile. Then it's gonna last a lot longer. But I did notice when I'm just like sorting through the settings and like the menus and like finding stuff and just experimenting, figuring out the camera, I'm not shooting anything, the battery's still going down by a large amount, which is pretty disappointing, honestly, but it's not that much of a deal breaker because the battery will still last me over an hour when I'm shooting. So it bugs me how quickly the battery goes down, but it's never actually gonna get in the way. It's just like something to think about if you are having to record like a lot of long days worth of footage. Like if you're going out and shooting like a wedding, you're gonna need a couple batteries, or maybe a dummy battery with a V-mount or a D-tap or something. It's going to die quickly, and you're not gonna be able to work off of one. Which it also does take a while to charge up too. In the box they sent only one camera. Obviously they only sent one camera. They only sent one battery and a charging cord to just plug into the camera, and it took like 4 hours to charge. It's pretty slow, but whatever. I still love the camera and what it does, so I'll work around it. I have 2 batteries already, and I have a V-mount and a dummy battery in the mail on the way, so I think I'll be okay. And I also don't shoot that long with huge lengths of footage, so it doesn't matter. Okay, so why did I decide to get this camera over my other options like the FX3, the A7 IV, the A7S III, or now the A7 V? Well, I didn't get the A7 V because that wasn't released yet when this was. I didn't get the A7 IV because I felt like my photos were not lacking shooting on the A6400. I found that my videos were my biggest problem. Everything that I would want or expect out of photos off of the camera, I could get on the A6400 just fine. It was a video aspect where it was lacking. I felt like my skill was actually kind of outdoing how well the camera itself could perform, and I knew I needed an upgrade for a video camera, but my photos were fine. So I knew that my photos weren't lacking with the A6400. That's why I didn't decide to upgrade to the A7 IV, right? Yeah, I decided not to upgrade to the A7 IV because I didn't really need the hybrid. All I needed was video camera. So then I was down to the FX3 or the A7S III. In all honesty, it kind of came down to the body. The body of the A7S III, like I said before, I never used that viewfinder, and it felt like the viewfinder was just huge. It's giant on that camera. I don't know why. It's just like taking up like a giant glob of space on top of the camera. There's no need for it. I also just like the body. I really just like the body of the FX3 more, and it just felt like it made more sense as a video camera, and I didn't really need a photo camera. Nope. Like, why is there a viewfinder on a video camera? It just doesn't make sense. I didn't need it. So I then decided on the FX3, and I started saving up for it, and one day the FX30 was announced, and I was like, yes, please give it to me, because it's a crop sensor. I'm working with a crop sensor right now, and I have no problems with it, and the FX30 pretty much performs the exact same as the FX3, but since the crop sensors are a couple like different internal settings, like the base ISO is different. There's more you can read up on that, but I just didn't feel like it was enough of a difference to make me decide, no, I need to pay double the price of the FX30 to get the FX3. I absolutely love the camera. I'll probably do like a re-review or something in a few months after I've used it for a while and see how it's holding up, but for now, I absolutely love it, and I do seriously recommend it. Alright, well, I'm gonna let you go now. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, I hope you learned something, and if you did like it, feel free to leave a like and subscribe. It helps me out, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Can't believe I just recorded the same exact video twice. Ugh.